Cheers. Thanks, Mermaid Junkies. If you hear that squeaky noise, that's my antique chair that I'm sitting on. Once again, this is a video that has terrible lighting. I just got out of a bath, so I'm wearing my nightgown. But anyway, I wanted to share a little video with you and talk about a couple of things, just different subjects, you know. So I'm not sure how to title this particular vlog post, but anyway, Crystal, the flea market, where they have beautiful crystals, and I found some beautiful ones. I got a jet, and I also got it's a blue one, and I can't remember what it's called. I also got some obsidian, a couple rose quartz. You guys have probably seen this. Like, these are my ones that I rotate them. And so anyway, I wanted to say, you guys, I'm not really prepared for this. I didn't really, but I got this one. Isn't that beautiful? So remember I showed you that one, which was a selenite. I think it's selenite. Is that how you say it? The selenite. This is like for mental clarity, and it basically, I had wanted it for a long time because it just cleans your crystals. Like, if you don't want to go through the process, like, you can, you know, clean your crystals that way. But I also love it because doesn't it kind of look Harry Potterish, like a little wand or something? And it's also like helps with like your angelic, you know, desires and things like that, how to connect with your angelic properties, angelic angel guides, things of that nature. So I love that. Isn't that beautiful? And just to give you a prime example of how inexpensive these are, the lady and man that own the place has been there for years. I mean, probably since the 70s maybe. And they go to market and everything. So they have so many crystals and just so many different things. And so today I also saged the cottage, and that was really good. And I felt really happy about that. But anyway, yeah, so this particular one was only like $4. What good prices they are. Lapis lazuli or something like that. Anyway, you guys, all my little crystal friends, could you tell me what it is? See how it's blue like that? Sometimes what I do, you guys, is everything is energetic, right? And so I always feel like energy wise, sometimes I have an idea, like I wanted to get that jet stone because that would really help with depression, help with just relieving the grief and things of that nature for, you know, my dearly beloved Sawyer. And but I also wanted to just have this clear energy before I went, because I think it's important. Like, I think your spirit and your body intuitively knows what crystals you were led to find at that particular time. And so I just sort of go with that, you know. I'll look around. A lot of times I do go on the dollar table because they have really good, I mean, really great crystals there, and just see what, you know, what I am attracting in that moment. So think about that when you go to buy crystals and such, is that intuitively your spirit, I believe that your inner being knows what you are needing for that particular moment in your life. And so I feel really happy about those. So I've had them with me all yesterday and all today, and it's really gave me some clarity, which is something else that those crystals have done. But I wanted to talk about, which was interesting, and I'm gonna talk about what you think about grows. And it made me think about Sawyer's death and how, you guys, I was telling you, and how it like fell apart in the last couple of videos, or not the last couple of videos, but the videos that I really broke down and everything. And I think what it is that the more I was going over it, the more I was trying to understand, because you guys know how I'm very, like I always talk to you about, I'm very methodical and want to go inwardly and try to figure out what's going on. And I had heard so many years, since I've been following Abraham Hicks' teachings, is that a vibration, an energetic vibration, is always where you last left it. So remember I told you guys that I did work really strongly on my inner being as far as building my self-love and being accepting of myself completely. And I think I should probably start doing a lot more videos on that, because if I had to say anything for my transformational voyage, I think that the basic thing that you have to come to understand and have to really dig deep to, not necessarily dig deep in a negative way, but understanding like how to use these different particular steps and practices to have self-love, because self-love is the foundation of everything, I think. And so I think it would probably be pertinent to go through several of those practices that I have incorporated into my life, because I think if you have that foundation, and if you have a good foundation, everything else is going to work wonderful. But one of the things that I understood was that I was talking about is that I recognized where an energy or energetic vibration is last where you left it. And so how I had worked so hard about self-love and all that kind of stuff, and you know how I've always said you take yourself wherever you go. So you could leave, but you're going to keep coming back to that same particular circumstance or experience in life if you don't ever resolve it, right? And so that's another thing that we should talk about, is that think about life. Like, I'll give you an example of a practice that about thoughts, okay? Because sometimes you say, okay, well, just like creating a new belief is basically creating a new belief that you believe, but then dropping the old belief, right? A belief is just something that you've thought of a lot. So if we want to like break it down into like technical terms, right? So people think like, oh, well, that's just what I believe. Like it's some extraordinary thing, that it's something that you can't change with an instant, and you actually can. But if you don't know how to do it, right? And you don't understand like the belief is, there's two sides of a belief, right? And so pretend this is a stick, okay? So the more you try not to think of a belief that you want to reincorporate a new belief in, there's still, when you move one end, the other end still moves. So basically what you have to do is deactivate the old belief. And the way that you deactivate an old belief is that you're going to have to create new pipes. And so, okay, so because what I'm saying is pretend this is an old belief, right? And this is a new belief, and you want to incorporate the new belief. But the more you say, I don't want to think about this old belief, I want to think about the new belief, the more you move, the pendulum moves, right? The stick will always move. So the more you try to push towards the new belief, the old belief is going to be moved as well. So then you just build resistance, which makes it more difficult to change a belief. That's why like we have Tony Robbins and Brendan Burchard, is because they actually do it in a different practice. They don't use law of attraction practices, which I think is like a little bit of a faux pas, because, or you wouldn't probably use that word, but you know me, I always figure out my own like dictionary, right? But like what I'm saying is they use different techniques in the way that they change beliefs. They do it like with like dramatic ways of like making things so difficult. But see, they actually use force in a sense to recreate a new belief, like the pain threshold and all of that kind of stuff. They use all of those mind-bending philosophies and such as that, which I'm not crazy about at all. I just believe that they still run on that whole idea of if you want if you want something to change, there's going to be pain involved, which it doesn't have to be that way. I think I'm so tired of people, like especially in the the self-help or the personal development field, is that most of them use they use that whole thing of force and whatever. And even when a lot of times I've seen, even when people use the law of attraction practices, they're using practices. Sometimes they'll pull a little bit, like I've seen some, spiritual teachers or whatever have used some practices. But this was the thing that like I totally want to talk about, because there's so many things I want to talk about, but the thing that I have never liked, and I don't know if you guys can relate to me, and maybe it's just because I'm a Southern girl, I have a Victorian soul, but the thing that I've always been into crystals. I've always been into like I've loved law of attraction for a long time, but I always saw it, and tell me if you guys agree with me or not, as this, and that's fine, there's not anything wrong with it. It's just that every time I would see like any kind of like spirituality or law of attraction stuff, everything is so like space oriented, or like source. You're going to use source, and I understand why Esther, or quote unquote Abraham Hicks, uses the word source, is because that she wants to detach, or Abraham desires to detach from the word God, because so many times people are misinformed about what and how the entity of God is. It's not really this one person that has, a gray beard and whatever. It's all of our higher consciousness, basically, right? So I understand why Abraham does that. However, I've always had this thing with like, I want to teach in a way that's not scary. And if that makes any sense, like, have you ever noticed that if you don't understand something, especially like the law of attraction, that it sounds space-aged and, atoms and molecular things and, just... I understand it's all energy, but I'm just like, can we put energy like, I like it like the old Victorian days. Like, let's make it look, in a more old-fashioned way or something. I've never been, I've never had the appeal towards that whole space-driven thing. It's like I want to do like a real law of attraction spiritual thing, but like, can't we use different words like that are really cool? Not like spiritual journey. Can we use spiritual voyage? Can we change some of the words, the definitions and the words that we use? Like, I'd rather use inner being than God or source. Like, it just sounds space driven to me. And it's, do you know what I'm saying? Like, as far as like a light, why can't it be a candle instead of a, light from looks like a UFO or something? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like all these spirituality channels, it's all like, woo! And there's nothing wrong with that, but I think it gives the illusion that it's like, oh my gosh, we don't believe in, in this gentle, loving God that surrounds us with, healing and that kind of thing. It just feels like it's very separate. I hope I'm making sense when I say that. But anyway, so back to the belief thing, right? So a belief, the only way that you can change a belief is, yes, you have to incorporate a new belief, right? So say I want to change, say Oliver's sitting in his basket. He's so freaking cute. Say you want to change a belief about anything. For instance, like, since I wanted to change a belief about money, okay? Well, first of all, there's different steps, right? Because you have to uncover where your belief stems from money to begin with. So let's pretend like, okay, what you have to do is go back between the ages of 8 to 12, okay? Decide where you remember the first time that you ever had experience with money. So I have done this particular process. So I went back. Now I made this up all on my own. Like nobody told me to do this, but this worked for me. And so, I gradually try to use the same process through other things with other beliefs. But what you have to do is sometimes you have to uncover why you have the belief, which was I wanted to uncover where my belief about money stemmed from. So I went back between the ages of 8 and 12 because those are the very like accountability age, right? of where you really defined particular beliefs and stuff. Okay, and so I remember that anytime I was ever felt love, I associated love with money. And the reason is because my mom, obviously, she never worked my whole life, right? And so the only time I ever received money was from my father. So I never received like physical affection from my father. The way that he showed love, which I understand a lot of these different things that I've never talked about, or I don't even feel they're necessary to talk about, but my relationship with my father is like, oftentimes the person you think that you're having issues with, or you feel like that wasn't there for you, or you have an issue with, a lot of times it's actually the opposite person that you think it is. So like, for instance, I always thought that I had daddy issues, right? Because my father was never there. But actually, if now that I've learned about this process, I've recognized that I was projecting that particular issue onto my father when it was actually my mother that I had the issue with. So I'll get into that another day, but like the transferring of where you believe your things stem from, your contrasting moments in life. So anyway, what I did was I went back, and every time that I ever felt sad, or I ever felt like that I wanted attention or something like that. Like, my dad never was very good at physical attention, that was not his love language. And it necessarily doesn't have to be mine. It's one of them, but it's not my top priority. Where I gained my love language was because it stemmed from when I was young. Because to show love to me is my dad would give me money, or he would buy me things. So that equated love to me. So then when I got older, if I was not given things or bought things like gifts and such, like, which is still one of my love languages. I like gifts. I mean, I really do, especially if they're gifts that I really want or something. Like, I would rather have them than all the beautiful, compliments and, verbiage as far as like compliments and everything. Like, I don't need that as much as I love having gifts. And it stems from my early childhood of why that's one of my love languages, is that I feel love when people buy me things. Now, it can have a little bit of, I've recognized that, and so now I understand it. But when you don't understand it, it's like, that is why I was in a marriage for so long, and that satisfied that emotion, or it satisfied that love language for me, which was that I wasn't ever getting that from my dad when I was younger. And therefore my husband, because I never changed that belief, obviously, and so I was in that marriage, and so if I needed to feel love, I was bought things, or take this money and go, buy a Louis Vuitton, or go buy those clothes, or go buy this or that or whatever. Like, so financially, that's where my love stemmed from for so long. But I realized that just because that is the way I was raised, that isn't necessarily what means things to me. Like, because after everything is said and done, my ultimate desire in life was to be rescued. And remember, I've talked about this so many times, is that you have to understand why when you get into certain relationships, that particular person oftentimes will show that particular need and desire in you. Because what you ultimately end up doing is, because you desire that so much, and that's a love language within yourself, is like to rescue, you become a rescuer. So because you want to be rescued, you rescue other people. And so you'll learn that that's why you get into relationships, and you realize, oh, okay, so now I have to go and save that person again, unless you change that belief. So like I said, I changed the belief as far as that goes, like not feeling like I need to rescue Jeffrey. I do not feel like that at all in this relationship. However, the vibration that I last left off with my ex-husband ended up being that I still had unresolved anger and resentment towards him, but felt that it had been gone, and through time, which it's been over 4 years, right? You would think, I mean, it's almost been 5 years I've been divorced. So I thought that through time, because I'm working on myself so much, that it had gone and dissipated, which that's what happens with beliefs, right? You can't keep egging on a belief. Like, I'm trying to change this belief and I want my ex-husband, I want to have no anger towards him. Well, if you keep saying, I'm going to work on that, right? You're activating it. And so what's going to happen is it's going to get bigger. And so the thing that I didn't do that I'm doing now, right, is another process that Abraham Hicks talks about is you have to lay new pipes. So instead of activating or trying, like, and she gives this analogy of she had a pond on one of her properties and it started clogging up and it was getting really cloudy, and you know, it would pump water through these pipes and everything, and it was always real clear, and you know, it had a spring or whatever, and it was beautiful and all the fish, and it was lovely. But over time it started getting like clogged up, and so the pond became muddy, and not muddy, became like mucky, you know, when it wasn't pretty, it was cloudy and everything. And she talked to the person that she asked to come and like see what was wrong with it and why it's not pumping out the water correctly and all that kind of stuff. And what she realized was that it was so old and everything, and they're like, okay, well, we can take this out and we'll put a new one in and let's see if it'll work then or whatever. And then she said she thought about the law of attraction or whatnot and decided that instead of doing all of that, or maybe she did do that and it still didn't work. And so she said, you know what I decided to do was just to lay new pipes in it. And then it was all fresh and new. And basically that's like a belief. What you do is you don't want to try to override, you know, like with affirmations, or try to like really incorporate, like, I'm not going to think about that, because the more you say, I'm not going to think about that belief, the more you think about the belief. So what you're doing is actually activating the old belief more strongly, instead of saying, oh no, I want to get rid of that belief. It works the opposite way, right? Because like attracts like. We're in a energetic field here, right? As far as the universe, like everything that you think about, you activate and you make it bigger. And so what you need to do is just activate a new belief and think and focus on that new belief. Laying new pipes about, like, if, for instance, mine with the anger and resentment that I have towards my ex still, I realize it's not gone. But the way that you do that is you're going to have to, you have to not bring attention to it, which I didn't do before, but now I have to think of a new process because that one didn't work. So always, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about life, is that you find a process, it doesn't work. I mean, some people use focus wheels. I attracted Jeffrey in 2 months. Focus wheels work for me. Now, I don't always like to do a focus wheel though. It's not always my favorite process. So I have decided to try a new process about the anger and resentment towards my ex. And so what I have decided to do is that incorporating a new belief means that I'm going to try and find, every time I think about my ex, I'm going to think about the positive things, because if I get my vibration correct, right? And not that I have to worry about every time or ever seeing him again, but the whole thing is if I need to let this belief lie dormant, so that, and anytime I ever think about him, because when that happens, right, you're going to activate that, and then that anger again will come back unless you have implemented new beliefs. So the best way that I feel that I can do this, and this is just for me personally, and you might want to try it, I don't know, is that you have to get your energy correct first, right? And then you have to think about only the good things. Like, find if it's just so minute, because we create our reality. So if you're having an issue with someone, it's your problem. It's not their problem. As much as you want to say, well, yeah, they probably have some good indications as why you're angry at them. But ultimately, it always comes back to us taking responsibility for our thoughts, feelings, and emotions, right? So I thought I'll just always think about the positive things, and then I will always bring those. And so eventually those things will override any kind of memory that I have going, right? And so it's a practice that it's going, I'm sure it'll take time and everything. But once I learn how to direct my thought that way, then when I ever think about that, or say 20 years down the road or something, and if I ever encounter him, like, maybe one of my boys or my daughter has a grandchild or something, and I come in contact, I'll have only practiced that prior to seeing that person or whatnot, and I will have created only the best version that I know of that person, and so therefore only the best version of that person will arise. It's an energetic thing. It's all energetic. But so many times we aren't focused on our thoughts, and so we're just like lackadaisical, and we're just out lazy around, and we don't even think about our energy and where we're aligning our thoughts to. So we're just like, you get in traffic, and did you align before you thought to get in traffic? And then the person that pulls out in front of you, you get agitated with them. But that's your problem, because you didn't prepare yourself for your day. You didn't think about all of the things. You didn't get yourself in alignment first is the problem. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not a problem, but maybe I should find another word for that. But anyway, that is my whole thing with beliefs. And so I don't know if that helped you. I would think that it would help, because I know it helps me, especially to talk about it and like explain it in detail. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing about my dad too is that was the other thing I was going to say, is that this whole thing with Sawyer and passing away and everything became a huge issue because of that GoFundMe. Now, see, that activated in me again that why money is important. Because, see, money to me is attached to love. So that's the reason. Because some people might have not gotten irritated about that. They might have been like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can say all day long one thing, but if your energy is doing something else, you know that it doesn't matter what you're telling the universe, because the universe is going off the energy, like internal stuff. So you can say, oh, the money doesn't matter, but the money really does matter. Like, do you know what I'm saying? You can't hide from the universe. The universe knows. Like, you can say all the right things that you want. Like, I'm over that. But the universe is like, oh, no, you're not. Why else would you get so angry, Raquel, about the fact that, they took all the GoFundMe money? And that was the reason, is because I felt once again that something was being taken from me, which was in turn money. And that means that I equate money with love. And that meant you are not receiving love, especially like not necessarily caring so much that it was my husband, but he had the control. So once again, it stemmed from another thing of me feeling like not in control of myself, right? Not in control of being controlled by money, because he basically was the kind of like, he was representing that whole thing of like, taking love from me, like in an essence from Sawyer. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. It totally makes sense to me. That's why I know where that activation came from, and the outrage and the anger and just complete and utter like anger to the nth degree, because I felt threatened for one thing. I felt that, it was going to represent a sense of maybe me not having love from Sawyer and someone else having control over me again, because that's how it was in my marriage, my previous marriage, is that I was controlled by money. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hope that makes sense. Like, I think it does make sense. I don't think I need to explain that further. But yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that it keeps coming around, and it's so true. Like people have said, well, if you don't get the experience and you don't learn from the experience, you'll keep getting it. And And this is what I want to do, is to continually learn and get things from the experiences that I didn't understand before. Because obviously I thought that I had cleared all of that energy away from the ex, right? Inherently I didn't. It still stimulates from money and my beliefs about money. You know, it was like I felt like everything was being taken from me, and I didn't have control over it. The only thing I do have, I mean, and I still don't have control over it. Like, I just considered the money's gone. You know what I mean? Like, it's just gone, and I have my little, you know, my little cremation ashes from Sawyer in the urn and everything, and I just feel and equate that. I mean, now I do still have his truck and everything, and that's still something that needs to be worked out, but at least I feel as though I have to put that to rest, and I have to realize and just come to the conclusion. And that's what I did in my mind to try to ease my mind about it, is that I'll never see that money. And even though I should have had half of it, because that was like really, I'm not going to get a lawyer and do all that, because then what you do, and that's not saying you're supposed to be weak and like, oh, you just bow down and let them get away with everything. That's not what this is about. What this is about is us learning. This is about me, and this is about you and our experiences, because oftentimes we want to say, you know what? No, that's not fair. And that's wonderful. Sometimes it is beneficial to actually do things such as that. You know what I'm saying? Like, get a lawsuit, do this or whatever, because when you push against something for so long, that's the only way we can learn from contrast. So, sorry, I heard Jeffrey in there. But that's the only way we can learn from contrast. So, yes, everything works for the best. You know, I'm not saying that we should lie down and just never, pursue anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. But for me, in this particular instance, this is what I'm choosing to do, and this is the right thing for me today. And like I said before in the last video, we can always change our mind about anything. So I feel that I think I took care of that. So I think this video should probably be about how to create a new belief. What do you think? And I'll share some more experiences with y'all, especially tomorrow. I think I want to talk about this news coverage that they did on Sawyer, and how it was very much, they misrepresented him and such, and something that's caused quite a bit. Like, I really didn't like how that went. And so I think maybe just talking about it will be beneficial for my healing and stuff. So anyway, I leave that with you, and I hope you're having a lovely day. And as always, most affably yours. Till my next swim. Ciao.